One freezing night, my husband heard a knock at the door. A drenched man stood outside asking, "Can you give me a push?" Annoyed, my husband said, "It's 3 a.m. and pouring rain," and slammed the door. I reminded him, "Remember when strangers helped us last winter? Go help him." Grumbling, he went outside and shouted, "Where are you?" "Over here," the voice replied. "Where exactly?" "On the swing set." "On..." One freezing night, my husband heard a knock at the door. A drenched man stood outside asking, "Can you give me a push?" Annoyed, my husband said, "It's 3 a.m. and pouring rain," and slammed the door. I reminded him, "Remember when strangers helped us last winter? Go help him." Grumbling, he went outside and shouted, "Where are you?" "Over here," the voice replied. "Where exactly?" "On the swing set." "On..." A newly divorced woman bought a flashy red Corvette. While speeding down the highway, she was pulled over. The officer said, "Ma'am, if you give me an excuse I've never heard, I'll let you go." She replied, "Last week, my husband ran off with a cop. I thought you were trying to bring him back." The officer laughed so hard, he let her go. Herm, an 85-year-old retiree, recently had a checkup with his doctor. About a week later, the doctor spots Herm walking along the boardwalk, his arm around a stunning young woman. Surprised, the doctor stops him and says, "Herm, you must be feeling fantastic." With a grin, Herm replies, "Just doing what you said, Doc. You told me to get a hot mama and stay cheerful." The doctor shakes his head and exclaims, "No, Herm, I said, yes, your heart has a murmur. Be careful." A few elderly couples would get together now and then to chat about life and share some laughs. One evening, Harry started bragging about this amazing restaurant he and his wife had gone to recently. "Oh, really?" one of the men asked. "What's it called?" Harry paused, thinking hard. Finally, he asked, "What's the name of those nice-smelling flowers?" "You mean a rose?" his friend said. "That's it," Harry exclaimed. Then he turned to his wife and said, "Rose, what's the name of that restaurant we went to the other night?" Three old friends, a Scotsman, an Englishman, and an Irishman, were sitting at a bar, sharing stories over a few pints. The Scotsman lifted his glass and said, "You know, back in Glasgow, there's this wee pub called McTavish's. The owner knows all the locals. You buy 4 drinks and he gives you the 5th for free. Can't beat that kind of loyalty." The Englishman smirked. "That's nice, Angus. But at my local in London, the Red Lion, you buy 2 pints, and the bartender gives you the 3rd one on the house. Every time." Then the Irishman leaned back, took a sip, and said with a grin, "Lads, that's nothing. At my favorite pub back home, the second you walk through the door, they hand you a drink. Then another. And another. You drink all you like, no questions asked. And when you're full to the brim, they take you upstairs and make sure you leave very, very satisfied, if you know what I mean. All of it. Completely free." The Scotsman and Englishman exchanged skeptical looks. "Really?" the Scotsman asked. "That actually happened to you?" The Irishman shrugged and replied, "Well, not to me exactly, but it's happened to my sister several times." A monastery in the English countryside had fallen on hard times and decided to establish a business to defray their expenses, such as a bakery or winery. Being English, however, they decided to open a fish and chips restaurant. The establishment soon became very popular, attracting people from all over. One city fellow, thinking himself clever, asked one of the brothers standing nearby, "I suppose you're the fish fryer?" "No," answered the brother levelly, "I'm the chipmunk." A Harvard grad and a blonde sat next to each other on a flight. The grad proposed, "Let's play a game. If I stump you, you pay me $5. If you stump me, I'll pay you $500. Deal, she said. He asked, "What's the distance between Earth and Mars?" She handed him $5. Her turn. "What goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down with 4? He searched everywhere but couldn't figure it out and handed her $500. "What's the answer?" he asked. She smiled, handed him $5, and said, "I have no idea. Now that you're laughing, share these jokes and spread the joy. Life's too short not to laugh until your sides hurt." A taxi passenger tapped the driver on the shoulder to ask him a question. The driver screamed, lost control of the car, nearly hit a bus, went up on the footpath, and stopped centimeters from a shop window. For a second, everything went quiet in the cab. Then the driver said, "Look, mate, don't ever do that again. You scared the daylights out of me." The passenger apologized and said he didn't realize that a little tap could scare him so much. The driver replied, "Sorry, it's not really your fault. Today is my first day as a cab driver. I've been driving hearses for the last 25 years. 3 elderly men visit the doctor's office for a memory test. The doctor turns to the first man and asks, "What's 3 times 3? 274, the man replies confidently. The doctor sighs, looks up at the ceiling, and moves on to the second man. "Your turn," he says. "What's 3 times 3? "Tuesday," the second man replies without hesitation. Shaking his head in disbelief, the doctor turns to the third man. "All right, let's try you. What's 3 times 3? "9, says the third man. The doctor lights up. "That's correct. How did you figure it out?" "Easy," the third man replies. "I just subtracted 274 from Tuesday." A ventriloquist is performing at a small-town club, going through his usual routine of off-color, dumb, blonde jokes. Suddenly, a blonde woman in the audience stands up, visibly angry, and shouts, "I've had just about enough of your ridiculous blonde jokes. What gives you the right to stereotype women like that? How can you think that hair color has anything to do with someone's intelligence or worth? People like you are the reason women struggle for respect in the workplace, in society, and everywhere else. You perpetuate outdated, sexist attitudes for cheap laughs, and it's not only offensive but also completely unacceptable in today's world." The ventriloquist, taken aback, starts stammering an apology. The woman cuts him off, pointing a finger at the stage. "You stay out of this, mister. I'm talking to that little jerk on your knee." The guys were all out at deer camp sharing cabins. There was just one problem. No one wanted to room with Carl. Why? Because Carl didn't just snore. He shook the drywall. To be fair, they decided to take turns bunking with him. First night, Steve draws the short straw. Next morning, he stumbles into breakfast with hair like a haystack and eyes like 2 road flares. "Dude, what happened to you?" "I didn't sleep a wink. Carl sounded like a chainsaw fighting a blender. I just sat there and watched him all night." Second night, Mike's turn. He shows up the next morning looking like he'd been hit by a truck. "Man, you okay?" Carl's snoring rattled my fillings. I gave up and stared at the ceiling till sunrise. Third night, Big Frank steps up. Ex-linebacker. Doesn't scare easy. They figure he can handle it. The next morning, Frank strolls in, refreshed, hair combed, sipping coffee like he's on vacation. Everyone's jaws drop. "Wait, you look great. What happened?" Frank grins. "Well, when we got into the room, I tucked Carl in, fluffed his pillow, and gave him a little kiss on the forehead. He stayed up all night watching me, slept like a baby." An old lady was having her portrait painted. She told the artist to paint her with a diamond Tiffany necklace, diamond earrings, emerald bracelets, a ruby Cartier brooch, and a gold Rolex watch. The confused artist said, "But you aren't wearing any of those things." The old lady replied, "I know. But if I die before my husband, I'm sure he'll remarry.
And I want his new wife to go crazy searching for the jewelry.